How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to continue with the in-game menu. So I did make a few changes though to the console class. I forgot to add this Y plus height. Just had height there for some reason. You actually have to have Y as well. But then I also added these. Added in a half width, which is half the screen width, and half height, which is half the screen height, and functions to get the screen width and screen height. We're going to be using these in all of our menu items. Let's see where we left off. So we'll just build this real fast. Yeah, so last time when we left off, we could open it up, and if we hit the M key and go back and forth. So today we're going to try to finish, well, not finish, because there's a few menus we're going to have to make that come from the main menu, but we're going to continue with the in-game menu. So the first thing we're going to want to do is add in some constants. Now we may be changing this to do it a different way, but this is the way I did it right now. So this way, we're just, instead of creating the whole panel box, I just did everything in individual lines. Oh, it's int M. Actually, let's not use M here. We'll call this panel parse menu size. 27. Now none of these numbers are set in stone either. We can change them. Const int clear row. And the small panel bar. Now these are just some numbers I came up with while doing tests. So now we're also going to need, down here, we're going to need a selector. And that's just going to be just M. Menu selector, so we're going to have to include selector up here. So if you remember, if we don't put anything in here, it defaults to a W string. And then we're also going to need a player selector. So let's actually forward declare the player. And then selector std shared pointer of player. That'll be our player selector. So if you remember from the slides, so this is the menu selector, and in our game, the way that we're doing it is you'll choose which menu you want to use, and then the player selector will become visible at that point. And you can choose which player you want to send into the items or send into the equipment menus. So that's how we're going to do that. So we're also going to have the bool mb exit game and mb in menu select. So are we in the menu select right now? And then we're going to have int and screen width, screen height, and center screen X. Or width, sorry, and M panel X, panel bar X. Then we're going to also need a select type. We're just going to use an enum here. Select type, item, magic, equipment, stats, order, or no selection. And we're going to have a select type member variable. So we'll be using this to determine which menu we're going to be opening. So we're also going to need a few functions here. We don't need to have any other functions available outside the menu. So all these can be private functions. So we're going to have void draw panels. We're going to have void draw player info. Then we're going to have void on menu select. That takes an index. And it also takes in a vector of W strings. And then we're also going to have an on player select, void on player select. That also takes in an int for index, but this one takes in a vector of, shared pointers of players. We could probably call that players, but we'll keep it with data. And then we also have on void on draw player select. That takes in int x, y, and a shared pointer to a player. Now for this on draw player select, we're not actually going to use this. This is going to be more of like a placeholder because our draw player info will be doing all the stuff drawing for us. So here, if you see, players are all going to be visible at all times in this menu. All the active players will be visible. I don't want them only visible when drawing from the selector. The only thing that I want visible from the selector is the selector itself for the player selector. So this is more of a placeholder for us. And this is going to be the select func for both. We can start making these now. So I'll quickly go to the console to show you what I did here, even though I showed you in GitHub Manager. So yeah, we just created these new consts and then getters for these values. So we can use this get screen width. We can use this screen width to set our screen width here. All right, so before we start digging into any functions, let's initialize our variables. So we have the M selector and menu selector. And it takes in a console, keyboard, and then we need a vector of data, so that's items. Because this is a vector of W strings, we can just initialize the vector like this. Magic. Equipment. Order. Save and exit. Okay. Then after that we need the selector params. So we're not just going to have an empty selector param, we're going to set this to 30. If you see under constructor, so that's 30 over in the X. This is the top left hand corner. 8. 1 column. 0 for X. And 4 for spacing. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so then now we have the M player selector. And we're going to do the same thing. This one we're going to be doing a little bit differently. If we go back to the selectors themselves, in the first one in the menu selector, we're calling this constructor. In the player selector, we're going to be doing this constructor where we initialize the draw item and the selection function in the constructor. So for that, we're going to go, oh, this looks ugly. I'm going to go console. Keyword, then we're going to go std bind, game menu state, on player select. We want this object, and then we want and this is for std placeholders. So we're gonna actually add that in up here. So it's using namespace std placeholders. So if you don't know what std bind is, let's look at that real fast. So std bind is used for generating a forwarding call wrapper for f. Calling this wrapper is equivalent to invoking f with some arguments bound to it. So f is a callable object, function object pointed to a function. We're using an std function here, and then we need std placeholders, which are our arguments going in. It's a list of arguments to bind, with the unbound arguments replaced by the std placeholder. So that's right here for std placeholders. So std placeholders, when used as an argument with std bind expression, placeholder objects are stored in the generated function object. And when that function object is invoked with unbound arguments, each placeholder up to n is replaced with a corresponding nth bound argument. So if you've never used these before, I do highly recommend, and I do recommend coming to CBP reference to check it out. Maybe if you've never done these before, I would build a little test project or like a test bed solution and start learning these things on the side. I can try to explain it, but it's not the same as doing it yourself. My explanations make sense to me, but they might not make sense to you, or they might not be good enough of an explanation. So it's always good to practice what you're learning so you have a better understanding. So anyway, let's go back to the menu. So we're gonna have to do the same thing, but this time we want on draw player select, and this one takes 3. And then we also need the selector params. And this one is 69, 13, 1, 0, 10. So it has no idea what a player is. We have to include player here as well. So that should go away soon. Nope. Oh, I'm so silly. I forget. We gotta put the data in here. So the data is going to be party dot get party. Now later on we'll be adding in get active members, but right now we only have 3, so it doesn't really matter. But eventually you're only going to want to filter these by the active party members. So right now we have just bound to our selector these member functions, and now we also have to do the menu selector set selection func std bind in menu game menu state on menu select this. Now the reason why I did it this way, because we don't need a draw function for this, because this is automatically done inside of the selector. So right here, if it's the default draw item here, it will, if it is a W string, it will write the string by default. So we don't have to make a function for that one. We have a few other variables that we have to do. So exit game, just false. In menu select, yes, we're going to start in the menu select. Screen width, screen width. We're going to take console dot get screen width, screen height, get screen height, and center W is going to be we can just go console get half height, or half width, sorry. And panel X bar is M center width minus panel bars divided by 2. Basically, we're going to be using these to center our bars that go across and our panels to the center of the screen. We're going to be using it for offsets. So now, let's do ME select type. And we're just going to have that default as select type none. Okay, so let's look at our functions here. Oh, it says I'm forgetting something. Nope, those are initialized. So right off the bat, we can go to our draw function. Let's get rid of this. We're always going to be drawing the panels, so we can put that in. We're always going to be drawing the player info. And we can also put in a menu selector. We can call that draw. And player selector, we can call that draw as well. And console. So let's look at our process inputs. So process inputs, we're going to be keeping this here because remember, the game state is always alive. Like we don't ever push it off unless we're exiting the game. So we're actually just going to want to pop the menu state off. It should automatically go back into the game state if this is the last menu, if this is your top menu. Because if you remember, we're using a stack. So right now this is the top element of the stack. But we are going to want to do this. If M be in menu select. Oops. Only when we're in the menu select are we going to want to pop off the state and go back into game state. If you look at this here again, so if we're in this menu state and we try to escape, that's when we leave. But if we have selected here and now we're here, if you hit backspace, we're going to want to go back to here, not pop off. So I'll show you what I mean. So else, we want this. We're going to take this, but we're going to get rid of this here. So then we're going to have to want to hide the player cursor. We want to set we're going to want to set that we're back into menu select because this will be getting set false somewhere. Reset the select type. And then we're going to want to show the menu selector. So what we could be doing here, we only want to process the menu selector if we're in the menu selector. Same with the player selector, we only want to process this selector if we're in the player selecting area. See, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so now let's go. We don't need to do any updates. So on enter, we're going to be hiding the player cursor. So let's do the on menu select first. So for on menu select, we're basically going to use a big switch statement. And the switch statement is going to be based on the index. So we'll go switch, index, oops, case 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe we have 7. Let's go look again. I can't remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We only have 6. Am I missing one? Yes, I am. We're missing stats. Now, should that be status or stats? We'll keep it as stats for now. But so there's 7 different items that we're going to have here. So on the first one, we're going to want to set the selector type. And the same with the rest. You're going to want to set them. Stats, order, save and exit. We don't need any of this here. So this is going to be a to do, save game, and we'll just return here because there's nothing to save right now. And then this one here is actually just exit the game. So mb exit game equals true, and this can also return from here. Then we'll put a default. It's actually just to return. So if not one of these numbers don't come in, we're just going to return. So exit game is true. I believe we have to do that down here. Yeah, so we just want to do exit game. mb exit. All right, so back up here. We're not done this one yet. So we're setting the type, and then we also want to show our player select only if one of these types are set. So if we're set to a proper type that we need the player select, then it will show the player select. Other than that, like the save will just return and exit will just exit the game. I'm thinking save might actually have a bubble that pops up that says like another panel with a selector says, "Are you sure?" Well, we'll get into that later on. So if me select type is not equal to select type none, and player selector dot show cursor, we're going to want to hide the menu selector, hide cursor, and then we're also going to want to in menu select false, because now we're not in the menu select anymore. We want to process the player select. So let's do the player select now. Player select will be somewhat similar. We are going to be using a switch statement as well, but this switch statement is not based on the index. This switch statement is based on our select type. The index in this one will get us the player at our data. Which player did we just choose? When we're drawing the player info, it will be in succession to the order they're in. So if you pick one at index 0, it'll be the player at 0. So we want to get that player. So const auto reference player is equal to data at index. So if we come here, we'll see what player is. See, player is a shared player pointer reference. Beautiful. So get our switch. And our switch is based on ME selector type, case, select type item. We'll just put break for now. This is a to do. So basically, if we've got here and we're in player select and we select our player, we're going to want to actually push an item state. So we're going to have to create new item state. So the same thing here, magic. Create new magic state. Order, I believe, should be done a different way because we're going to have to be ordering the party. I guess we could do it from here and just send all of data in or just send party in, but we'll look at that later. That's not that important right now. And default is just a break. All right. So now on draw player select, we don't have to do anything here. So there's nothing. Nothing to do here. This is basically just a placeholder. Okay, what else do we have to do? Let's just run that and see what we got so far, see if we have any mistakes. F5. All right, so if we hit M, cool, showing all of our stuff here. We hit item, yep. So we have no players, but it did show that. Go back. So we didn't erase that. So we need to do that when we hit backspace because we don't want this to show at the same time with this one. Sometimes you do. Sometimes like you want to show that you're in items, but not us. We want to have that erased. So why didn't that erase? So on our backspace, we probably should have cleared buffer. So yeah, we can just put that in right here. Console, clear buffer. Okay, let's try it again and see if that worked. So M, item, clear buffer. So there we go. See, nice and good. If we hit exit, yeah, so exit's not working, which is fine. We'll figure that out after. So now, the last thing I want to do for today is do the draw player info. So for the draw player info, I'm going to want to get the party, and I also want to keep track of I, but I want to do it this way. Actually, I want to go I equals 1. I want to go for const auto reference player in and party. Got get party. So then we also want to go if player is active. If not player is active, we want it to continue. So if our player is not actively in our party, so say we have like 10 players and we only have 3 active members, well, I don't want to look at the non-active players in this situation. So, and then we're going to want to get the player attributes. So the first thing we'll get is the name, const auto name equal HP. Then we want to get max HP. I'll just call it HP max. And then we want to get the level. I know this is ugly, right? Player dot get level. to go const auto reference XP is equal to player get XP. Then we need to get const auto reference XP to next is equal to player get XP to next level. And let's, all of these are all integer values. We're going to want to go to std to wstring to all of these. Alright, then we're going to want to go HP string is equal to HP plus HP plus Now we want to go level string the level plus level plus exp plus xp All right, does that make sense? So we're going to want to have HP, then we're going to have the HP divided by max HP level, and then we also want to have experience and experience to next level. So then we're just going to want to write to our console, whoops, console.write. Now I just picked 75 here. Now we could probably make a variable for this so we don't have to constantly write 75, but we'll just do 75 for now. This one needs to be 12 plus I. And we want name. And you know what? Let's go light aqua for color. Why not? And we'll just copy these. And then this is 13, 14. And this is our HP string. And this is our level string. And then right here, we're going to want to I plus equals 10. Because we want to separate our characters. So if there's more than one, we want to separate them by 10 each. And then down here, we can draw the party gold. Const auto So hopefully that makes sense. Let's draw it, F5. And yay, so we only have the one player, so he shows right here, our gold's down here. If we go to item, yay, we can select our player, and it works. So for fun, let's go back into game state where we're creating our player. At least I believe we're creating a player. Yep, right here. And we'll create a new player. Call this one Dustin Warrior. Cool. And F5, it should show both of our players now, both of our created players. Yay, it shows them both. We kind of, I think 10 is too far apart. Maybe not. And we can select between them both. We don't have an equipment menu or anything yet. Okay, so that's enough for today. So next video, we're going to create the borders or the panels for the menu state. And we're also going to create a few utility functions because we're going to need a timer because I want to have time here. So we're going to have to create a timer and we'll look into that next video. All right, see you then.